I told my doctor that I broke my arm in 2 places. So he told me, stop going to those places. Welcome to Acquisition Pro Tips, where we seek to demystify the essentials of government contracting, so you can navigate the process with confidence. I'm Josh, a warranted government contracting officer, and today we're tackling the basics of conducting and documenting market research. I will go over when it's required, how to define your requirement through salient characteristics, how to perform the research the right way, and how to turn it into a clean market research report that, along with the IGCE, helps drive your acquisition strategy. Let's start with what market research is and when it's required. Market research is the necessary process of understanding what the market can provide, such as products, services, capabilities, pricing, and contract vehicles, so you can describe your requirements accurately and choose the smartest path toward a contract. FAR Part 10 says agencies must conduct market research before developing requirements, before soliciting above the SAT, when information is lacking below the SAT, before actions that could consolidate or bundle, before certain orders under large contract vehicles, and on an ongoing basis to identify capable sources, especially small businesses. FAR Part 11 connects research to a clear description of agency need, favoring performance-based descriptions and widely used specs and standards, so we promote full and open competition. FAR Part 12 reminds us that for commercial products and services, market research is the foundation to describing the need in functional or performance terms and building the solicitation and contract on commercial practices where appropriate. In short, market research isn't paperwork, it's the foundation. Defining your requirement is next. For supplies, capture the salient characteristics, the essential physical, functional, and performance attributes the item must keep. Keep them clear, measurable, essential, and non-restrictive. For example, if you walk into an electronics store to buy a television, you probably already have an idea of the features you need: size, resolution, performance, and technical capabilities. Maybe you want a smart TV so you can mirror your computer screen, or perhaps HD and Wi-Fi connectivity are essential. These wants translate into the salient characteristics that define your requirement. Without this preparation, if you simply tell the clerk you want a TV, their first question will naturally be, what kind? If you can't answer, neither can they. The simple principle applies in contracting. Your contracting officer cannot read your mind or design the requirement for you. Defining salient characteristics is your responsibility as the customer, often with the help of a subject matter expert. Nothing will stall your acquisition faster than failing to clearly articulate a well-thought-out requirement. For services, you will need to draft what's called a performance work statement focused on outcomes, performance standards, and acceptable quality levels, state deliverables, reporting, and any required certifications, such as minimum training and professional degrees. Imagine you're bringing on a gardener to maintain your lawn. You wouldn't hand them a step-by-step manual on how to mow, edge, or trim. That's their profession. Instead, you'd focus on the objectives you need them to meet. For example, the lawn must be mowed once per week during the growing season, edges kept clean, and hedges trimmed to a uniform height. Hours of operation might be set between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. to avoid disturbing the neighborhood. You might require prior experience in residential landscaping or a basic certification in pesticide application if chemicals are involved, with the added requirement that all chemical use and waste disposal comply with local regulations. Quality standards could include grass kept under 3 inches, flower beds free of weeds, and all clippings removed after each visit. Notice what we're doing here. We're defining performance objectives, standards, and outcomes, not prescribing the gardener's methods. The only time you would dictate how the work is done is when a regulation or legal requirement, like safe chemical use, makes it necessary. This is exactly how a performance work statement should be structured. Clear outcomes, measurable standards, and accountability without overstepping into micromanagement of the contractor's process. Finally, let's look at construction. Suppose you want to build a treehouse in your backyard. You wouldn't walk up to a builder and just say, "Build me a treehouse." You'd need a statement of work supported by drawings and specifications. For example, the design might call for a wooden structure anchored to a specific tree, elevated 8 feet off the ground, with a 6 by 8 foot platform, a safety railing at least 3 feet high, a shingled roof, and an access ladder that meets basic safety standards. You might also require that the builder follow local building codes, use pressure-treated lumber for durability, and obtain any necessary permits. Supporting documents like sketches, measurements, and material requirements become part of the package to ensure the contractor knows exactly what to deliver. In construction, it's not enough to describe the outcome. You must define the materials, methods, and standards up front so the finished product is safe, code compliant, and built to last. Just like with federal contracting, a statement of work for construction combines specific requirements, supporting designs, and applicable standards, leaving no ambiguity about what must be built. Whether it's a television, hiring a gardener, or constructing a treehouse in the backyard, the principle is the same. Define what success looks like, not a single vendor's way to get there. In the report, document the government's need and the salient characteristics for supplies, the performance objectives and measurable outcomes for services, and the defined work, materials, and standards for construction. In the solicitation, contracting places those same essentials in the specification, PWS, and SAO and align specific evaluation criteria against them. If brand name attributes are truly essential, we can include the language "or equal" with verifiable, testable characteristics. For services, we pair your PWS with a quality assurance surveillance plan, and for construction, we ensure submittals and material standards are traceable to recognize codes and specs. So how do you perform the research? The by-the-book answer is to start with mandatory sources in FAR Part 8. Check Ability 1 and Unicore where applicable. Then look at wholesale supply sources and multiple award schedules, using tools like GSA Advantage and eBuy. Consider GSA's market research as a service for a structured vendor scan. Pull historical data, prior solicitations, contracts, performance, and pricing, and leverage your contracting office's files. Engage subject matter experts to sanity check your requirements and industry norms. Post sources sought and RFIs on sam.gov to validate capabilities, lead times, and small business participation. Explore pre-existing contract vehicles, BPAs, and IDIQs, common for things like intrusion detection systems and furniture. Round it out with SAM Entity Search, Dynamic Small Business Search for small businesses, and professional market tools if available. Capture everything you did and what you learned. A quick but crucial clarification: preferred vendor, brand name, and sole source are not the same thing. A preferred vendor is just a preference, insufficient on its own, but a brand name requirement demands a proper brand name justification. A legitimate sole source requires an exception to full and open competition under FAR 6.3, with a justification and approval that withstands scrutiny and requires signature authority and approval. If competition exists, or could exist, you don't have a sole source. Whatever you do, don't build your salient characteristics from a vendor's unofficial quote. That's how you end up pigeonholing your requirement, stifling competition, inviting protests, and potentially violating adequate price competition rules. Start from the mission need and performance outcomes. Use industry standards and cross-vendor input. Document why each characteristic is essential. Now let's walk step by step through how to document your findings in the official market research report. This is where everything you've researched gets captured in a standardized format, and it becomes part of the requirements package that the contracting office will use to shape the acquisition strategy. Section A, General Contracting Information. First, identify whether the requirement is mission critical or essential. If it is, it requires a functional commander's signature. In these cases, you'll often see references to DFARS clause, continuation of essential contractor services. This clause defines what essential contractor services are. Basically, contractor support that must continue under all circumstances, because failing to do so would significantly impair mission operations. It also requires the contractor to maintain and update a mission essential services plan, participate in continuity exercises, and be prepared to perform during crisis situations. They must notify the contracting officer if they can't perform, and the government retains the right to supplement those services with federal employees or other contractors. Costs associated with continuing performance during a crisis must be tracked separately, and any equitable adjustments must be negotiated. Finally, contractors must flow this clause down into subcontracts for essential services. Closely related is DFARS clause, Notice of Continuation of Essential Contractor Services. Here, the offerer must provide a written plan with their proposal, showing how they'll continue essential services during a crisis. That plan should cover acquisition of essential personnel and resources for up to 30 days. From there, you'll move into the administrative details of the report. The organization conducting the report is simply your unit or squadron. The project name or requirement name must be written in full. The report date is the date you began the market research. The estimated cost must reflect the independent government cost estimate, the full dollar value, including all option years for services. This number determines what documents you'll need in your package and which acquisition strategy the contracting office can use. If you haven't seen my previous video on building an accurate, independent government cost estimate in episode 4, I recommend watching it after this one. It'll give you a solid foundation to pair with today's topic. Next, mark whether the requirement is for a supply, service, or construction. Select the correct product service code, PSC, or Federal Supply Code, FSC, by using the PSC manual or GSA's PS tool selection. Remember, PSCs cover both products and services, while FSCs are a subset that cover only products. Picking the right one matters because it drives reporting, market research, and compliance. Then determine the correct North American Industry Classification System code, or NAICS. This 6-digit code classifies businesses by their primary product or service and sets the size standard for small businesses' eligibility. The wrong NAICS can either exclude eligible small businesses or let in ineligible ones, which could undermine competition or even lead to a protest. Use the NAICS manual, SAM.gov, Dynamic Small Business Search, or historical contract data in the Federal Procurement Data System to validate your choice. Section B, Agency Need. Here, describe why you need the supply, service, or construction project. Include the background, impact, and any urgency behind the requirement. Section C, Product or Performance Requirements. This is where you annotate the salient characteristics, performance objectives, or construction details that you already defined earlier in the process. Section D, Available Sources and Vendors. In the Vendor Outlook portion, document every step you took to identify potential vendors, searches on GSA Advantage, sources sought notifications, requests for information, calls, or web research. If you believe the requirement is brand name or sole source, explain why and reference your justification and approval, also called a J&A, if it's already written. In vendor information, provide each company's details, business name, commercial and government entity code, also called a CAGE code, or NATO Commercial and Government Entity, NCAGE code, socioeconomic status under the NAICS, address, point of contact, and a summary of capabilities. Ideally, you should list at least 2 or 3 vendors to promote competition. If the contractor does not have a SAM.gov registration and CAGE code at the time of submitting an offer, which is before contract award, the government cannot do business with them. Don't worry, I have a video on this topic as well. Furthermore, FAR Part 6 requires full and open competition, and the Competition and Contracting Act, CICA, requires advertising contracts over $25,000 at least 15 days in advance. Adequate price competition generally means at least 2 responsible offerers submit independent offers. If you cannot identify multiple sources, you may be dealing with a true sole source, but that is rare and must be documented and justified. Once sections A through D are completed, the requirement owner signs for approval. From there, sections E through I are filled out by the CO. Section E, background. The CO notes any previous contracts for similar requirements and whether this is a new or recurring need. Section F, market research techniques used. The CO records not only your research, but also any research they conducted themselves. Section G, commercial opportunities. The CO determines whether the requirement is commercially available and documents why or why not. Section H, small business concerns. For requirements within the continental United States, or OCONUS, small business set-asides are mandatory under certain thresholds, and annual goals apply for different socioeconomic categories. For requirements outside the continental United States, OCONUS, these set-asides aren't mandatory. But if market research shows qualified small businesses exist, the CO can still consider set-asides. Section I, conclusion and recommendations. Finally, the CO writes their strategy, how they'll solicit, evaluate, and award. This includes competition approach, evaluation criteria, small business considerations, and whether special approvals are needed. Once this is signed by the CO, your market research report is finalized and becomes part of your requirements package. Until it's signed, your package is not complete. Before we close, here are my top 10 acquisition pro tips for market research. Number 1, start early. Begin research as soon as you know there's a need. Number 2, write needs, not brands. Anchor specs to performance and outcomes. Number 3, distinguish services versus supplies with incidental services to pick the right path. Number 4, don't skip the report just because you'll use an external IDIQ or BPA. Document how you found it. Number 5, expect change. Refresh research if timelines slip or market conditions shift. Please note that market research is typically considered current from 12 to 18 months after it was completed. But this is not always the case, especially in fast-changing market conditions, such as pandemics, tariffs, and political and civil unrest, which disturb local and global markets. Number 6, use SMEs to validate what's truly essential and to sanity check specifications. Number 7, treat preferred vendors as input, not as a must. Prove the market supports your case. Number 8, pick PSC, FSC, and NAICS codes carefully. Number 9, plan logistics early. Lead times, consolidation points, staging, and delivery risk. Number 10, for OCONUS services, factor DOCPERS timeline and mission essential continuity requirements. If your requirement involves bringing U.S. contractor personnel overseas, you need to account the Department of Defense Contractor Personnel Office, better known as DOCPERS. This office ensures that U.S. contractors working overseas meet all host nation requirements, such as visas, work permits, medical coverage, compliance with the Status of Forces Agreement. Why does this matter? Because the DOCPERS approval process usually takes 90 to 120 days. That means if you don't build this time into your acquisition schedule, your contract could be awarded, but your contractors won't be able to legally begin work. That's the core of smart market research. Define the need clearly, engage the market fairly, document the path transparently, and let the data drive your strategy. If this was helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another acquisition pro tip.